Welcome into Big Money Friday. And if you want to get more of these, here's what you got to do. Stop selling commodities, start selling value. We're going to talk about what that means, why it's important for you, and 3 things that you can do to maximize getting more of these. Hi folks, I'm Sean Crabtree.
And I'm Cameron Bailey.
You got one shot at this life.
Why would you not make it the best that it can be?
This show comes to you weekly about happier clients, better results, making more money, and enjoying the ride.
Let's get started.
And welcome into the show that comes to you every single week here at Growth Profits with ways for you to have happier clients, as you know, better results, making more money, and enjoying the ride. And one of the best ways to get more of this and enjoy the ride and have happier clients and all of those other things is to stop selling commodities and start learning to sell value. Now, what are we talking about? Here's what we're talking about. This will be a stretch for some folks, but bear with me, and I'm going to challenge you at the end of this to see if you can find an opportunity that goes against what I'm saying. Commodities, for our purposes, I'm going to describe as the products and the services that you offer in your entrepreneurial business. If you're a dentist, you're offering teeth, right? If you're a CPA, you're offering accounting services. If you're a lawyer, then you're offering, law advice, right? Those are what I would call products. Those are what I would call commodities. But here's the trick. Nobody on earth wants commodities. What? Crabtree, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. No, it's actually really true. You and I, and nobody you know, and nobody you ever have known, we don't really want commodities. Instead, we want the value that we perceive those products, services, or commodities will get us. Now, before you can make the switch from commodities to value, you got to get this in your head. And this is a big challenge for some folks because let's face it, at the end of the day, whatever it is that you do in your niche in the world, right? You got into it because you love those products and those services. And you want to be able to help change people's lives with those products and those services. That's admirable. It's noble. And it's something that any of us as entrepreneurs respect. But you got to make the switch. The products and the services that you offer are not the key focus. The value that those products and services or commodities deliver is the key focus. Okay, so what are we really talking about here? Well, let me give you a great example. When you think about commodities, I think about clothes and cars and shoes and purses. There's a great one, purses. Okay, purses are a really good example of a commodity, Mr. Producer. So think about it this way. Now, all you ladies who are listening to me, you probably would throw things at me if you could get to me. Thankfully, you can't because I'm on the video. But bear with me and let me finish the analogy, and then you can maybe throw stuff at me if you don't believe this is true. I started this off by saying nobody wants commodities. Instead, we want the value that we perceive those commodities will give us. So let's use purses as an example. Now, plenty of you ladies who are listening to this have got some expensive purses. Mr. Producer, do you have any idea what a really high-end purse costs?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't.
You don't?
I don't. I mean, I thought $800 was ridiculous for a high-end purse. You can go a few $1,000s for a purse?
Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous.
Mr. Producer, if you were of the female persuasion, would you actually carry something on your arm that holds your stuff and it was like $2,500?
I mean, I feel like I'd get robbed.
Not because of what's in the purse, but for the purse itself. Yeah. They rob you. Okay. Yeah. So here's what I said. Nobody on earth wants commodities. We want the value that we perceive those commodities will get us. Okay. So do you ladies really want a purse? Now think about that just a second. When you go pay whatever you pay for your purse, even if it's $100, even if it's $49, especially if it's $2,500, whatever the price is that you pay, are you really buying that purse because of the fact that that thing can hold your junk and you can carry it around holding your junk? Now, wait a minute before you answer, yeah, I really needed that purse because it could carry my junk. But now, wait a minute. Did you really buy that purse because it could carry your junk? Or couldn't a Walmart plastic bag, couldn't it do the same thing? You could put all your junk in a Walmart plastic bag and carry it around, making a fashion statement with the Walmart bag carrying all your junk. So think about that. It's not the commodity itself that you're after. That's not what you paid for, because the Walmart bag could do the same thing. Yeah, but Sean, it doesn't have a nice shoulder strap. Hey, it's plastic. You can stretch it out. You can make it big. And instead of a little small hole, you got an armhole in there, right? It's the same thing. The point being this: it's not the commodity of the purse itself that had you pay whatever you paid, because you could use a plastic bag for that. You paid what you paid because you have a perception that that particular brand or that particular look of that particular purse is going to bring you value in one form or another. And I'm not arguing against that. I'm just saying it's not the commodity itself, the actual carrying of the stuff that the purse does, that you're after, because you could get that basically free of charge, right? So what you're paying for is the value that you perceive. And some young ladies in general would perceive more value in a different brand or a higher price brand than others. But at the end of the day, whatever the price of the purse is, it performs the same function as the plastic bag that you get at the Walmart, that you could stretch out and make an shoulder strap with. So at the end of the day, it's not the commodity itself. Now, how in the world does that translate to what it is that you do? Listen, if you're an IT person, then you are really excited, and you probably got into the IT business because of your ability to deliver your services and your products to people, right? But at the end of the day, remember, they don't want those products and those services that you offer at IT. They want the value that those things can get them. And if you're on this side of the fence selling those commodities, you've got to switch your focus from those commodities to what they can actually deliver. And that's the difference in stopping selling commodities and starting to sell value. But before you can implement these steps, you got to understand that your sales are not going to go through the roof until you get this. And that's why it's the most important thing. The real challenge is, if you believe that your products and services or commodities are what your clientele wants, then you inevitably are getting into a price tug of war at every scenario. Because absent value, the only way decisions can be made is by price. And so you are losing the price game, and you're losing the quantity of sales game, because you haven't switched the focus from selling commodities to selling value. Now, if what I'm saying makes sense, and by the way, for some folks, this is a tough one to get. And I understand why. Because you got into your business because you get excited about the products and the services that you offer. You just have to realize that is not the primary focus. The value of those products and services is the primary focus. Another way to say that is this: whatever it is that you do in your world, if you're a dentist and you perform dental procedures, or you replace teeth, or all those kinds of things, you have to realize that teeth are not what you do. Okay, let me say that again. Teeth are not what you do. They're just the means to get to the end, which is what you do. So what is it that you do? You create value. You find out what it is that people want, and through the delivery of those commodities, they can get what it is that they want. But you have to get clear in your mind that the teeth and the procedural things that you do are not the most important thing. The most important thing is what the patient gets out of those things that you do. It's a subtle difference, but it's massive. And until you make the switch in your head that what you do is simply the means to the end, then you're not going to be able to maximize your profitability. You're not going to be able to maximize your sales. At the end of the day, you're not going to have happier clientele. You're not going to have better results, and you're not going to have higher profitability and making more money and enjoy the ride. So that's why we're talking about all of this. And the first thing that you have to do is, I told you there were 3 things I want to give you. The one thing we've already talked about. You got to get it clear in your head that the products, services, or commodities that you offer are not the most important thing. They're only the means to the end. That's the most important thing. Thing number 2, what we're talking about here is stop selling commodities. Start selling value. The number one thing you got to do is make that switch in your head. What you offer, products and services, commodities, not the most important thing. What that means to your clientele or your patients or your customers, the value, that's the most important thing. If you can switch that, the second thing is this. Now that you got that clear in your head, make it a focal point that from here on out, at the beginning of every conversation that you have with a potential client, customer, or patient, from here on out, you're asking lots and lots of questions, and they're open-ended questions. These are questions that begin with what or how or when. Now, what are we talking about, and what does this have to do with switching from commodity focus to value focus? Here's what that means. If you understand the concept, then you understand that what you offer in terms of products and services is only the means to the end. So what you want to find out by asking these questions, and this is number 2, is what is the end? What is the end thing that the patient or the client or the customer is actually looking for? So at the beginning of every single interaction, you want to ask lots of questions. What's most important to you about such and such? You know, that's a great question to start with. What are some concerns you have about such and such, right? So let's put it together. Let's say that you're selling cars, okay? If you're in the automotive industry and you're selling cars, and hopefully you already understand where it is that I'm going, but you got to make this switch in your head. You don't want to meet somebody, right, on your car lot and then say, "Hey, how you doing?" and take them all over the car lot and show them all of these cars, right? Instead, you want to ask lots of open-ended questions. What's most important to you about your next vehicle? How are the ways that you're going to use your next vehicle? What are the most important concerns you've had about your last vehicle? All of these things are allowing this customer, client, or patient to open up and tell you the things that are most important to them. Now you have the ability to deliver the means to the end, which is going to get them what it is that they want. So, number 1 is you got to switch your focus from the products and services that you offer to the value. And the way you do that, number 2, is ask lots of open-ended questions. What, when, how. Find out as much as you can about what's most important to this person. Then and only then can you show them how the commodities that you offer will get them what it is that they want. And the number 3 big thing here is once you're asking those open-ended questions and you're ready to make the presentation, or if you're a dentist, you're ready to make the treatment plan or the diagnosis, or if you're an HVAC guy, right? You're ready to present what it is that this particular client needs. When you present it, you have to tie in. You don't focus on the commodities that you're delivering. You put the focus on what it is that it means to them. That's how you tie the 2 together. So you're clear in your head, number 1, that the commodities that you offer are not the focus. They're only the means to the end, right? And the end is how it's valuable to your clientele. Second thing you're doing is asking lots of open-ended questions on the front end to figure out what that value is to your clientele. The third thing is when you make that presentation, you got to tie the 2 together and use everything that you just learned. So when you make the presentation, you're not going to say, here's what you need this, 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 and this, and here's what it costs. No, you're going to tie the ends and the means together using this verbiage, what that means to you is. So it might go like this. So, Mr. Customer, based on everything you've told me is most important to you, which is this, 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 and this, okay, here's what you need. You need this, this, and this. And here's the important part. What that means to you is you're going to absolutely get the thing it is that you told me that was most important up front. Now, let me tie all this together and give you a great example of this. I recently got a great recommendation to a new automotive mechanic who just happens to be about 5 miles down the road. And I'd never been to this particular mechanic before, but he came highly recommended from somebody that I really respect. And so I drove out, I took my car in, and as soon as I walked in the door, I introduced myself to the young lady at the front, the receptionist, and the owner walked out from the back. And he introduced himself. I shook his hand. Here's what he said. By the way, just to lay a little bit of visual here, the lady at the front desk, right behind her was a giant whiteboard. And there was all this information on the board, but right in the middle of the board was a number. I think it was 2123 or something like that. 2123, and there's a big circle around it. So the owner walked out, he introduced himself, and he said, listen, I don't know if you noticed that number right back there on the board, but that number, 2123, whatever it was, 2123 represents the number of happy clients that we have delivered services to since we've been open for business. My goal, Mr. Crabtree, is to add 1 to that number, and I want you to be the happiest client that we've ever had. I said, great. He said, if I'm going to be able to deliver that kind of quality service to you, I probably need to start with asking a few questions. I'm thinking, he's been watching my videos. But I appreciated it, right? Because I know where he's trying to go. So he said, when it comes to your car, like I don't really know much about you, Mr. Crabtree, or what it is that you do, but I'd love to know if I'm going to serve you at that level and add 1 to our happy client list, then what I need to know is what's most important to you when it comes to your vehicle? And I said, you know what? I'm so glad you asked me that. Here's the bottom line. Like this particular car, we call it the airport car, at the Crabtree Group. We call it the airport car. It is never driven except to and from the airport, which, by the way, we are going almost every single week. About 52 weeks a year, we drive this car back and forth to the airport, and that's it. And it sits in my garage the rest of the time. So the most important thing to me, Gary, is, I don't know anything about cars. I don't know anything about engines. Here's what's important to me. When I turn the key at 4:30 in the morning, because I have to be, at a 7 a.m. flight to fly across the country to meet with my clientele, when I turn the key, I want the confidence of knowing this thing is going to get me to my destination with no problems. That's it. That's what I'm looking for. I don't understand engines. I don't know anything about engines. But what I do know is I want the confidence of knowing when I turn the key, it's going to get me there and I don't have to worry about it. We pay cash for cars around here. So the bottom line is I want it to work. I want the confidence of knowing that it's going to work. I don't want to have to deal with it. Whatever's required to give me that confidence is what I'm looking for. He said, thank you very much. We'll check out the car. I think I understand what it is. He had a little small talk conversation. What is it you guys do at the Crabtree Group and all that sort of thing. He said, I'll check the car over and I'll give you a call back. Wonderful. Later that day, he called me back. And he said, Mr. Crabtree, let me make sure I understand this. So you're serving clients pretty much all over the U.S. and even outside of the country. You've been doing that for a little over 20 years, right? Yep. And you're traveling almost 52 weeks out of the year. Yep. And this is the airport car that takes you from your destination to the airport and home. And sometimes that's at 3 a.m. when you get home. And so the most important thing to you is more than anything else, you want the confidence of knowing that whatever time of day it is, you turn the key, it's going to get you there. I said, that's exactly right. He said, then based on all of that, here's what you need. And he started laying out some things. And everything that he laid out, now he would say, you need to replace these hoses. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. Some people don't think it's a big deal. But replacing those hoses, what that means to you is you are never going to have to worry about something as simple as a weak hose, causing an engine stop at 3 a.m. Belts, lube, brakes, all of these things. And I have to tell you, I brought it in because I just wanted it checked over because it is the airport car and I'm looking for that confidence. I ended up spending about $2,300, but you know what? It gave me the confidence that it's going to get me where it is that I want to go. And he was very clear to be able to communicate at each one of those steps. Not the price, that came later, right? But as he's walking through all those things, here's what you need. You need this, 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 and this. What that means to you is, and he would tie it back to the confidence that what I'm looking for, 3 a.m. coming home from the airport and all of these things. And I have to tell you, I was totally happy to be able to pay it. And I was very appreciative of the way that he approached it. It's a great lesson for how you and I need to be. Number one, realize in Gary's situation, the automotive services that he provides and the products that he puts on my car, that's not the most important thing, right? The most important thing is finding out where my value is and then being able to deliver that. So number one, switch your focus from the commodities to the value. Number two, ask. Just like Gary did in my example. Ask. What, how, when questions so that you can find out as much as you can about what's most important to the person that you're dealing with. And then number three, when you make the recommendation or the treatment plan or the diagnosis or whatever it is, don't put the focus, remember number one, don't put the focus on the commodities. You have to explain the commodities, but tie the two together. The commodities, which is the means, and the end, which is the value. Tie the two of those together and do it by using that verbiage. What that means to you is. I would write that down. What that means to you is. That's the bridge that ties the products and services that you offer to the value that your client is looking for. And if you don't have that, and all you've got is the products and services, then the next conversation is going to be all about the money, and you're not going to win that game. I want you to have more of these. At the end of the day, it's about you having happier clients, better results, making more money, and enjoying the ride. I can promise you this. If you will switch your focus from selling commodities to selling value and implementing those 3 steps, you'll not only get more Benjamins, you'll have happier clients, you'll get better results, and you'll make more money and enjoy the ride. I'm Sean. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next week, same time, same channel. Have a good week.